$2,000. That's roughly what the first IRMAA surcharge adds to your Medicare bill each year if your income 2 years ago was over $109,000. You've probably heard the standard advice: keep your income below that threshold, or you'll lose money to what people call the Medicare penalty. And most people who are approaching 65 treat that like a hard rule. Stay under the line, no matter what. But what if that advice is actually costing you more in the long run? I've watched people spend years restructuring their income, delaying conversions, and leaving their traditional IRA completely untouched, all to avoid a $2,000 surcharge. Then at 73, required minimum distributions kick in and push them into a higher tax bracket. And now they're paying far more than $2,000 every single year. That's the trap hiding inside the conventional advice. The surcharge isn't the problem. Avoiding it at the wrong time is. Today we're going to look at the hidden math that turns the IRMAA surcharge from something you dread into something you can actually use. There are real opportunities that open up when you cross 65, and they're only available for a limited window. If you use them right, you can save tens of thousands in future taxes. If you follow the standard advice blindly, you'll lose that window without ever knowing it was there. Let's start with the first opportunity, and why most people get it backwards. Let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. IRMAA stands for Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. It's an extra charge added to your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums if your income in a prior year was above a certain threshold. For 2026, that threshold for a single filer is $109,000. If your modified adjusted gross income, your MA-GY, was over that number, you pay more for Medicare. For married couples filing jointly, the threshold is $218,000. The first surcharge tier adds $71.30 per month to your Part B premium and $13.20 per month to Part D. That comes out to about $1,014 per year. If your income stays at $108,999, you pay nothing extra. If it hits $109,001, just $2 higher, you owe that full $1,014. That's not a gradual increase, it's a cliff. $1 triggers the whole surcharge. Here's the part that catches most people off guard. Medicare doesn't look at what you earned this year. It looks at what you reported on your tax return 2 years ago. So if you're turning 65 in 2026, Medicare is using your 2024 return to set your 2026 premiums. What you earned at 63 determines what you pay at 65. That 2-year lag is the mechanism behind everything in this video. It means you have a window, a real specific window, to make decisions before those premiums get locked in. So why do so many people focus entirely on staying under the threshold? Because the advice they've received is, IRMAA is a penalty, avoid it at all costs. And that advice isn't wrong in a narrow sense. Nobody wants to pay more for Medicare. But it becomes a problem when you let it drive every income decision you make between 60 and 65. Here's what happens when you follow that advice rigidly. You keep your income low to stay under $109,000. That means you're not doing Roth conversions, or you're doing very small ones. Your traditional IRA stays large. It keeps growing. And then you hit 73, and the IRS requires you to start pulling money out whether you want to or not. Those required minimum distributions, your RMDs, are calculated based on your account balance. If you left a $400,000 IRA untouched from 65 to 73 at a modest 6% return, it grows to over $630,000. Your RMD in the first year could be over $23,000. Stack that on top of Social Security, and you're looking at a tax bracket well above where you would have been at 63. If you have a traditional IRA worth $400,000 or more, you're exactly the person this situation was designed to catch. Not because anyone is trying to harm you. The system just isn't built to protect you from decisions you made at 62 by only looking at that year's premium. The real question isn't how to avoid IRMAA. It's when does paying it actually save you money? And that's what we're going to work through next. I'll be honest with you, I used to think the same way. For a long time, my instinct was to keep income below the IRMAA threshold. Don't trigger the surcharge. Keep the number clean. It felt like the responsible move. Then I sat down with my own numbers and realized I was thinking about it exactly backwards. I was protecting a $1,000 line item while ignoring a $15,000 decision. Here's the framework I use now, and it's straightforward. IRMAA is a toll. You pay a small fee to access a road that gets you somewhere cheaper. The toll is the surcharge, about $1,014 for the first tier. The cheaper road is the ability to convert a chunk of your traditional IRA to a Roth at today's marginal rate, before RMDs force you into a higher bracket later. The question is never whether the surcharge is painful. It is, a little. The question is what you get in exchange. Let's run the numbers. Take a single filer with a $500,000 traditional IRA. If they stay under the IRMAA threshold, they might convert $20,000 a year while remaining in the 22% bracket. They pay $4,400 in tax on that conversion. Their IRA keeps growing. Now say they decide to convert $50,000 in 1 year instead. That pushes their module over $109,000, triggering the first IRMAA tier. They pay $1,014 in additional Medicare premiums, and they pay 22% tax on $50,000. That's $11,000. Total out of pocket for that 1 year, about $12,014. Here's the other side. If they don't do that larger conversion, the $50,000 stays in the traditional IRA, keeps growing, and eventually becomes part of their RMD calculation. At 73, if their bracket has moved to 24%, the tax on that same $50,000, plus its growth, is going to be higher, not by a little. Over a 10-year horizon, the gap in taxes paid adds up to $15,000 or more. So the full picture looks like this. Paying $1,014 in IRMAA to unlock a $50,000 Roth conversion can save you $15,000 in future taxes. That's roughly a 15-to-1 return on the surcharge. That's not a penalty. That's a decision. And this is the reframe that changes how you think about the window between 60 and 65. Those years aren't just about managing income. They're about controlling where your money gets taxed, now at a rate you can predict, or later at a rate that gets decided for you. If your projected RMDs at 73 are going to push you into the 24% bracket or higher, paying IRMAA for 1 or 2 years is almost always the smarter move. The math points in one direction. The only thing stopping most people is the way the surcharge feels. So let's look at what the two paths actually look like over time. Let's put the two paths side by side so you can see exactly what you're choosing between. Path 1, you keep your income under $109,000 every year from 65 to 72. No IRMAA. You do small Roth conversions, maybe $20,000 a year, just enough to stay under the line. The traditional IRA shrinks slowly. At 73, your remaining balance is still around $450,000. Your first RMD is roughly $16,400. That stacks on top of Social Security, maybe some pension income, and suddenly your total taxable income is high enough that you're in the 24% bracket. Year after year, the government sets your withdrawal schedule for you. Over a decade, the extra taxes compared to a better conversion strategy add up to $30,000 or more. Path 2, between 65 and 70, you convert $50,000 in 1 or 2 strategic years. You pay the first IRMAA tier, about $1,014 each of those years. You pay tax on the conversion at 22%. By 73, your traditional IRA balance is meaningfully smaller. Your RMDs are lower. Your bracket stays at 22%. The total tax you pay over retirement is lower, and you kept the difference. That difference, conservatively, is $15,000 or more in your pocket. But here's what the number doesn't capture. Path 2 also gives you something you can't put a dollar amount on: control. When your RMDs are smaller, you decide how much to spend each year. You're not being forced to pull out more than you need. You're not bumping into higher brackets every time the market has a good year. You're not watching your Medicare premiums go up because a strong year in your portfolio pushed your income over a threshold 2 years later. Path 1, feel safe because you're never paying the surcharge, but the cost of that safety shows up later in higher taxes, less flexibility, and less ability to plan around your own numbers. Path 2 costs a little more in 1 or 2 years, but it buys you a retirement where the income picture is far more predictable. By paying the surcharge now, you give yourself the ability to control when you pay taxes. That's the real value, not avoiding a $1,000 fee, but keeping $15,000 or more in your own hands over time. So why don't more people take this path? Because of something that has nothing to do with math, and everything to do with how a $1,014 line on your Medicare bill feels. When people first see the IRMAA surcharge on their Medicare notice, the reaction is almost always the same. It feels like punishment. It feels arbitrary. You hit $1 over a line and you owe an extra $1,000. And the immediate response, the gut response, is to do everything possible to avoid that line next time. That reaction makes complete sense. There's a well-documented pattern in how people respond to losses versus gains. We feel the pain of a $1,000 loss about twice as strongly as the satisfaction of a $1,000 gain. So when you see a $1,014 surcharge on a Medicare bill, the emotional weight of that number is roughly double what it looks like on paper. The math says the surcharge can be worth it. But the brain says, I am being penalized, and those two things can coexist in the same person, in the same moment, without either one winning easily. I've seen this play out many times. Smart people, people who understand the math, who run the numbers themselves, and then still choose the path that avoids the surcharge, because the fee feels wrong in a way that's hard to explain. It's not about the money. It's about feeling like you did something wrong just by earning too much. And here's the thing. That feeling isn't irrational. The IRMAA cliff does feel abrupt. It is abrupt. $1 changes the number by over 1,000. That's a design that naturally triggers frustration. What it doesn't mean is that the right response is to back away from that line permanently. The system isn't punishing you for having a good income. It's structured in a way that creates a real incentive to move money out of pre-tax accounts. When you pay the surcharge and use that year to do a significant Roth conversion, you're using the system in exactly the way it can work for you. Next time you find yourself close to the $109,000 threshold, try this. Instead of figuring out how to stay under it, stop and ask what would happen if you went $5,000 over and used that room for a Roth conversion. Just run the numbers. You might find the toll is worth it. So, how do you actually decide? Let's walk through the steps. The decision doesn't have to be complicated. There's a straightforward way to work through it. Step 1. Get a realistic picture of your RMDs at 73. Take your current traditional IRA balance, apply a conservative growth rate, 5 or 6% per year, and project forward to age 73. Then divide that projected balance by the IRS distribution period for age 73, which is currently 26, 5 years. That gives you a rough first-year RMD. Step 2. Stack that RMD on top of your other expected income at 73. Social Security, pension if you have one, any part-time work. Look at the total and find where it lands on the tax bracket chart. If it puts you in the 24% bracket or higher, you have a strong case for doing larger conversions now. Step 3. Check your current IRMAA against the 2026 IRMAA thresholds. $109,000 for a single filer, $218,000 for married filing jointly. Calculate how much you'd need to convert to cross into the first surcharge tier. The first tier cost is $1,014 per year. Step 4. Run the scenario. Assume you convert $50,000 in 1 year and cross into IRMAA. You pay tax on the conversion at your current marginal rate, plus the $1,014 surcharge. Now compare that total cost to what you'd pay in taxes on that same amount, plus its growth, if you left it in the traditional IRA and withdrew it as RMDs at a higher bracket. Step 5. If the future tax cost is higher than the conversion cost plus the surcharge, the conversion wins. If not, the smaller conversion approach is still better. Let's look at a real example. Meet David. He's 63, single, and has a $500,000 traditional IRA. He's been keeping his income under $109,000 every year to avoid IRMAA. He's planning to retire at 65. When David runs the RMD projection, he sees that his IRA, if left mostly untouched, will grow to around $670,000 by the time he's 73. His first RMD would be about $25,000. Combined with Social Security, his taxable income lands solidly in the 24% bracket. He decides to convert $50,000 in the year he turns 63. He crosses the IRMAA line and pays $1,014 in surcharges. He pays 22% tax on the conversion, $11,000. His total extra cost that year is about $12,014. Over his lifetime, the tax savings from the lower RMDs come out to roughly $18,000. That's a return of about 17 to 1 on the surcharge he was trying so hard to avoid. The rule of thumb: if your traditional IRA balance is over $400,000, the math almost always favors paying some IRMAA during your conversion window. The exact numbers will vary by your situation, but the direction rarely changes. So let's put this together. IRMAA is not a penalty you should spend years engineering around. It's a data point in a much larger calculation. For most people who are approaching 65 with a traditional IRA worth $400,000 or more, the math will point in the same direction: strategic Roth conversions during your early retirement years, even when they cross the IRMAA threshold, reduce your total lifetime tax bill. The smartest retirees aren't the ones who avoid every fee. They're the ones who know which fees are worth paying and when. That reframe from never pay IRMAA to is IRMAA worth paying this year is the kind of shift that can change the outcome of your retirement by more than you'd expect. This channel is built on exactly that kind of thinking, not the generic max out your accounts advice, not the fear-based headlines, just the actual math, laid out clearly enough that you can run it yourself and make decisions that fit your own situation. If you're between 55 and 65 and you want to understand your retirement options at this level, not just the surface version, but the real mechanics behind the rules, hit subscribe. We put out analysis like this every week. And the earlier you start understanding how these levers work, the more of them you can actually use. One last thought. The system can feel rigged, especially when you see a fee appear out of nowhere, just because your income crossed a line. That frustration is fair, but the people who come out ahead are the ones who study the system instead of just reacting to it. You're already doing that by being here. Stay curious, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.